Have you ever noticed how some people seem to carry the weight of their family's emotional ecosystem without anyone asking them to? Do you find yourself automatically smoothing over conflicts, remembering everyone's schedules, checking in on siblings even when you're drowning yourself? Maybe you've wondered why you feel responsible for problems that aren't technically yours to solve, or why rest feels like betrayal when someone might need you. If this resonates, you might be living the hidden life of the eldest daughter. And I say hidden because what happens in this role often goes completely unnoticed by everyone except the person doing it. This isn't about birth order astrology or personality stereotypes. Psychologists call it parentification, and it leaves marks that most people never connect back to being the first child, the responsible one, the one who learned to read the room before they could read books. Number 1. The manager who never applied for the job. Do you ever feel like you're running a company you never founded? Eldest daughters often become the family's unofficial project manager, tracking emotional inventories, predicting conflicts, maintaining systems that would collapse without their attention. This happens so young that most don't remember a time before the hypervigilance set in. You learn to notice when your mom's voice changed pitch, when your dad's silence meant danger, when your siblings needed intervention before they even asked. This is emotional labor in its purest form, the constant monitoring and management of other people's feelings and needs. Research on family systems shows that firstborn daughters are disproportionately assigned caregiving responsibilities. Not just physical tasks, but the invisible work of keeping everyone regulated. You became fluent in reading microexpressions, in knowing who needed what before they knew it themselves. And because this started so early, it doesn't feel like a role you're playing. It feels like who you are. The exhaustion comes from the fact that managers get days off, but you've been on call since childhood. Number 2. The guilt that guards every boundary. Have you spent years feeling selfish for the smallest acts of self-preservation? Eldest daughters often describe a specific flavor of guilt that most people can't relate to. A guilt that activates the moment you prioritize yourself, even in completely reasonable ways. Saying no to a family request feels like abandoning ship. Taking time for yourself feels like negligence. Celebrating your achievements feels like rubbing it in when others are struggling. This guilt isn't random. It's the psychological residue of a childhood where your worth became entangled with your usefulness to others. When a child learns that love and approval come through caretaking, their nervous system starts treating self-focus as danger. Studies in attachment research show that parentified children develop what's called compulsive caregiving, where attending to others becomes a survival strategy, not just a personality trait. The guilt is actually your system trying to protect you from the perceived threat of withdrawal or disappointment. You're not being dramatic when boundary setting feels physically painful. Your brain genuinely processes it as risk, because for years, maybe decades, your safety depended on being needed. Number 3. The maturity that stole your childhood. Does it seem like you were never allowed to be young, even when you were? Eldest daughters frequently describe feeling like small adults, aware of family dynamics and responsibilities that should have been nowhere near their consciousness. While other kids were focused on play and exploration, you were tracking whether your parents were okay, whether bills were getting paid, whether your siblings were being cared for properly. This premature maturity gets praised as responsibility and leadership, but psychologists recognize it as a developmental disruption. Children need time to be children, to exist without the weight of adult concerns. When that gets compressed or skipped, it creates a strange displacement. You might find yourself more comfortable with people older than you, struggling to relate to carefree peers, feeling alien in situations where others can just relax and be present. There's often a deep grief hidden under the competence. Grief for a version of yourself that never got to be protected. To make mistakes without consequences rippling through the whole family. To have needs without apology. That little girl who had to grow up too fast is still in there, and she's exhausted. Number 4. The resentment no one wants to hear about. Do you find yourself cycling between resentment and shame about that resentment? This might be the most taboo part of the eldest daughter experience. You love your family. You'd do anything for them, and you're also furious about the imbalance, about the years of invisible labor, about the way everyone just expects you to handle things. That contradiction feels impossible to hold. Our culture tells you that good daughters don't keep score, that family helps each other without expecting reciprocity, that your complaints are proof of selfishness. But resentment isn't a character flaw. It's information. It's your psyche telling you that something is inequitable, that you've been giving from an empty cup for too long, that the social contract is broken. Research on caregiver burnout shows that unexpressed resentment doesn't disappear. It turns inward into depression, or outward into explosive anger that feels disproportionate to the trigger. The shame you feel about being angry is often worse than the anger itself, because it traps you in silence. You're allowed to acknowledge that you've been carrying more than your share. You're allowed to be tired of being the strong one, the reliable one, the one who never needs help because you're too busy providing it. Number 5. The invisibility of your own needs. Are you someone who can identify what everyone else needs with stunning accuracy, but goes blank when asked what you need? Eldest daughters often develop a peculiar form of self-abandonment, where their own needs become background noise, almost inaccessible. This isn't because you're naturally selfless or admirably humble. It's because for years your needs were consistently deprioritized, either explicitly or through the implicit message that others' needs mattered more. When a child's needs are chronically unmet, or met only after everyone else is taken care of, they learn to stop broadcasting them. The neural pathways for self-advocacy atrophy. You become so good at pushing through, making do, handling things alone, that you genuinely lose touch with your internal signals. Hunger, tiredness, sadness, desire. All of it gets muted. Therapists who work with parentified adults talk about the long process of needs recovery, of learning to even notice what you want before jumping to what you should do. This is why people asking you simple questions like, "What do you want for dinner?" or "How are you really doing?" can feel almost threatening. Accessing that information requires slowing down, turning inward, trusting that your needs deserve space. And that trust was broken a long time ago. Number 6. The expertise in crisis, the struggle in peace. Have you ever noticed that you're incredibly capable when things are falling apart, but almost don't know what to do with yourself when life is calm? Eldest daughters often become specialists in crisis management, their entire nervous system optimized for high-stress situations. You're the person everyone calls when disaster strikes, because you snap into competence mode, clear-headed and effective. But in the absence of emergency, you might feel restless, untethered, almost like you're waiting for the other shoe to drop. This is what psychologists call stress addiction. Though it's not really addiction in the substance sense, it's more that your baseline was set so high for so long that calm registers as unfamiliar, even unsafe. Your nervous system learned that hypervigilance keeps everyone safe, including you. Relaxation can actually trigger anxiety because it feels like you're missing something, like you're supposed to be monitoring or preparing or fixing. Studies on childhood stress exposure show that the brain adapts to chaos, becoming less responsive to calm environments. This is why vacations can feel harder than work, why having nothing urgent to do creates more discomfort than having 10 things. Peace isn't your natural state, because peace was rarely an option growing up. Number 7. The loneliness of being seen as strong. Does it seem like people assume you're fine because you always have been? There's a particular loneliness that comes with the eldest daughter role. The loneliness of being perceived as so capable that no one thinks to check if you're okay. Your strength became your identity. And identities are cages as much as their definitions. When you're the person who holds it together, who solves problems, who doesn't break down, people stop offering you the support they'd automatically extend to someone who seems more fragile. This isn't malicious, it's human pattern recognition. If you've spent decades proving you can handle anything, why would anyone think you need help now? But strength and need aren't opposites. You can be competent and drowning. The mask of capability is so convincing that even you might believe it most of the time. Until you're alone at night and the exhaustion catches up. Research on emotional labor shows that people who perform it consistently often report feeling unknown, even by those closest to them, because the performance obscures the person. You've been strong for so long that letting anyone see you struggle feels like breaking character, like disappointing everyone who's relied on the version of you that never falters. Number 8. The reckoning and the rebuilding. If you're reading this and recognizing yourself in these patterns, you're already doing something radical. You're naming what was invisible. That's where change starts. Not in fixing or optimizing, but in seeing clearly what's been true all along. The hidden life of the eldest daughter doesn't have to stay hidden. You get to decide what you keep and what you release from this role. Maybe you keep the empathy and lose the guilt. Maybe you keep the competence and lose the compulsion to solve everyone's problems. This isn't about blaming your family or rejecting your history. It's about acknowledging the cost of what you carried and giving yourself permission to put some of it down. Therapy, particularly approaches that address family systems and childhood trauma, can be incredibly helpful in untangling these patterns. So can conversations with other eldest daughters who understand this specific weight. You don't have to figure this out alone, even though alone is what you're used to. The strength you developed wasn't a gift. It was a survival response. And you survived. Now you get to learn what it feels like to live without constantly bracing for impact, without measuring your worth by your usefulness, without sacrificing yourself on the altar of everyone else's comfort. That little girl who grew up too fast deserves to finally rest. And so do you.